I am Anna Seawolf, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. My mission is to end violence against children. Through my work and this podcast, I help parents break generational cycles of trauma, reconnect with their authentic selves, and raise emotionally healthy children. Together, we have built a global community of conscious parents who want something different for the next generation. Join us as we create a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. Today, the Japanese way of raising calm, caring, and capable kids. I don't know about you, but I've always been fascinated by how people parent in different parts of the world. As someone who has lived in 4 countries and speaks 6 languages, but has only parented here in the United States, I am especially curious about what raising children looks like elsewhere. I have a particular interest in Japan. When I was 15 years old, my grandmother, an avid reader, shared a book with me called The Japanese. And we read it together, and that experience stayed with me. And now, years later, I am actually planning a trip to Japan. So if you're listening from Japan, I would love to hear from you. Maybe you can help me plan my visit, and who knows, perhaps we'll even meet in person. You might remember that I have explored this topic before, if you are a long-time regular listener, that is. I did an episode called The Japanese Way of Parenting. And interestingly, that's also the title of today's guest's book, though it's a different perspective and a different voice. A couple of years ago, at one of my live events, I opened the evening by sharing a Japanese concept that I deeply love. It really resonated so much so that people reached out to me afterward wanting to learn more. Let's take a listen. So to begin with, I want to share with you something that I really like. In Japanese tea ceremonies, there is a common phrase, ichi-go, ichi-e. In translation, it means for this time only. The idea is that each moment is a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. The lesson is to cherish each moment while you're in it. When you live with ichi-go, ichi-e as your focus, the world changes. Interactions are deeper, moments are sweeter. It's a beautiful reminder of the subtle joy and wonder that accompanies life. Ichi-go, ichi-e speaks to the idea that no one encounter can ever be recreated. Each moment and each convergence of time, space, light, mood, thought, circumstance is singular and unrepeatable. As such, every encounter should be met with one's full attuned senses. Some encounters plant seeds that take root over time, while others change the course of one's life in a single moment. May this phrase today be a reminder for you to cherish this gathering. Even if we get together in this place again, this particular gathering will not be recreated. And thus, each moment is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So slow down, enjoy the moment you're in, and treasure this occurrence. Before we dive into today's conversation and explore what we can learn from the Japanese approach to parenting, I also want to point you to a few past episodes where we've looked at parenting through a global lens. Last year alone, I released 2 episodes. One is titled, What Cultures Around the World Can Teach You About Parenting, with Marina Lopes. She wrote a book called Please Yell at My Kids, And in it, she showcases how people parent in 11 countries, including China and Brazil. Quite fascinating. The second episode I released last year is also a really poignant, eye-opening, and thought-provoking conversation with Abigail Leonard, the author of the book For Mothers. The episode is titled Motherhood is Political: Parenting Policy and Cultural Expectations. When I visited Armenia in 2017 as a parent, I noticed that people were parenting differently than here in the United States. So I recorded an episode with one of my friends about the way they parent in Armenia, which is quite similar to the Danish or the European way of parenting. The title of that episode is Are We Overparenting in America? And speaking of the Danish way of parenting, yes, I have done an episode on that too with the author of the book, The Danish Way of Parenting, Jessica Joel Alexander. Don't worry, you don't have to remember any of this. I will have a link to all of those episodes in the show notes, including my initial conversation with a Japanese mom who lives here in the United States, and it's titled The Japanese Way of Parenting. Clearly, this is a topic I keep coming back to because there's so much we can learn when we widen our lens. So, if you're listening from outside the US, I would love to hear from you. Tell me about your country. What does parenting look like where you live? Or come continue the conversation in our private Facebook group, the Authentic Parenting Community. And now let me say a few words about today's guest. Her name is Lisa Katayama, and she is the author of a new book called The Japanese Way of Parenting and what it taught me about raising mostly calm, caring, capable kids. Lisa is a working mom and writer who was born and raised in Tokyo. She's the author of 2 books, including Urawaza, Secret Everyday Tips and Tricks from Japan, and is a former tech and culture journalist for Wired, Fast Company, and the New York Times Magazine. Lisa is a U.S.-Japan Leadership Program Fellow, an Asia Society Young Leader, and was named one of Forbes Japan's top women to watch in 2018. She currently serves as Chief Transformation Officer for the Japanese technology company Digital Garage and lives in Northern California with her family. And now, please enjoy and thank you for listening. Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
I read the book, I didn't read in detail. I skimmed through. I wanted to see what's in the book from start to finish. It's a warm book, and
Yeah, I just got my copy.
Ah, that's nice.
Yesterday, yeah.
It's nice. I really enjoyed that. How old are your children now?
They are almost 6 and almost 3.
Oh, so yeah, they're still young.
They are.
Yeah, they are still young. I was wondering, sometimes people write, it seems like you wrote it almost, in real time.
I did.
Yeah.
It was like journaling, basically.
Yeah. That's why it's good. I think it's very honest and, it's not, sometimes people write a book, and because I see a lot of books, right? For 10 years, I interviewed so many authors. Sometimes people try too hard to write a book. It's that forced writing. But this is very I hear your voice. I can see it. I feel it with you. It's very honest and it connects to the reader. Yeah.
Thank you.
It maintains my interest. And I've been obsessed with Japan, I think, since I was 15. I read a book called The Japanese in Armenian. My grandma introduced me to that book.
Wow.
It was an older book. This was in 1980 something. And there were no pictures, right? It was like for grown-ups, this book, but it had
Mm-hmm.
like every aspect of Japanese culture, food, tea ceremonies, everything. I don't remember much about it, but
Mm-hmm.
it just, I guess it shaped me so much that reading your book, I'm like, wow, like I'm more Japanese than I thought I was.
I love it.
Because I guess early influences shape your thought patterns, your ideology, your perspective on things, and you don't realize it. I was reading your book this morning. I'm like, I can totally live in Japan. I'm Japanese.
Yes.
You know, it's so familiar to me, and I love it. I love the culture. And we may go to Japan this year. My daughter is graduating from high school, and she's also
Congrats.
in love with Japan, and she wants to go to Japan for her graduation trip. So, yeah.
Aw, that's
Uh,
great. And I think that is a common experience for a lot of people. They read about these, quirks of Japanese culture and they're like, oh, I relate to that. I actually also like having my life really organized whenever I
yeah.
can. Or, I like keeping dirt out of the house. They aren't, it's not, there
Yeah.
aren't magical ideas. That's,
No, they are. We have books
yeah.
here. My daughter loves Japanese like art, decoration, and housekeeping things. It's just like I love the simplicity, the organization. I also took a Zen Buddhism class at Princeton University last year. Like I'm really into it.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
for
Yeah.
sure. And we also talked about there was a lady I interviewed her many years ago. I should have looked. And I titled that episode The Japanese Way of Parenting,
Oh
even
my
though she
gosh.
she didn't write a book. She was
Okay.
just the mom I knew from the internet. And because I was interested in how people parent in other countries, I had her and I just asked her questions about how things are in Japan and now when I saw your book, The Japanese Way of Parenting, I'm like, wow, I cannot use that title for this episode. I have to come up with something else.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, because book titles often are made by the publisher.
Yeah.
This book had a few different titles before it became The Japanese Way of Parenting.
Oh,
But yeah.
do you mind like sharing now that I'm familiar with the book? Like, what was like your original title that you worked with?
Yeah, I was trying to go for adventures in Japanese parenting because to me,
Ah,
this book really is about my adventure in Japanese style parenting. I would say, as you know, because you've read the book, I'm not even really a quintessential Japanese parent, whatever that means. But my heritage is I'm Chinese and Japanese, and I live in America. So the way I'm raising my kids is not by any means traditional, quote unquote traditional. So yeah, I was like, it's my adventure, so it should be adventures in Japanese parenting. But I think the publisher felt like the Japanese way of parenting is a little bit more appealing to audiences, which is obviously the goal of a book is for people to buy it and read it. So that's what it ended up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I love how you go into in the beginning, what Japan and Japanese people are famous for. There's so
Mhm.
many interesting things. Some I didn't know, some I knew. I'm like, wow, like this is really, really interesting. I love you went there. So you lived in both countries and parented rather in both countries, which is always interesting. Right before our interview, I was reading the part where you are in America and your child is, you're giving your child choices and like this typical American parenting about something silly, we give a choice and then you question yourself. Uh, and I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, like I have become so Americanized. And when you go to the farmer's market, like everybody's talking and everybody's friendly, I'm like, that is very American. I lived in 4 countries and I'm Armenian. I
Wow.
wasn't born
Yeah.
in the United States, right? So I came here, but my parenting happened here in this country. I became a
Mm-hmm.
parent in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when I took my daughter to Armenia for the first time, when she was 9, there was this public space. There was a concert or something outdoor area, and Armenia has lots of statues. And there was this beautiful statue of the main architect of the city. And my daughter, there were so many kids outside. My daughter went and climbed on the statue, and I didn't think of anything. I didn't say
Yeah.
anything. I didn't stop her. It's like in America, we don't do these kinds of things. And then women, mothers, no, other children started climbing, the Armenian children. And the mother started like scolding them, go down. Who started this? Why did you do this? I felt so embarrassed because I could understand the language. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so distanced from cultural norms of my country that my child climbing on this public statue, like I don't even register that as a bad behavior or something like it's not
Yeah.
you're not supposed to do. So, with that, let's launch into our discussion about parenting in different countries, specifically in Japan and in America.
Let's do it.
So, tell me your experience, of experiencing Japan. Were you born in Japan?
I was, yes.
Yeah. But then you came to the United States, right? You didn't live there.
I lived there through high school, and then I moved to the United States for college, and then I stayed here and have been living here ever since.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when you went to Japan, I'm sure when you were a kid in Japan, you didn't think much about how parents were parenting, right? I think we start thinking about parenting when we ourselves become parents. So,
Yes, I think so. Or when your friends become parents and you see them suddenly change their life so dramatically, and you're like, oh, that's what it's like to have kids. For me, I was like, that's what it's like. I'm gonna wait. So, I waited. I didn't have kids till I was in my early 40s. But yeah, so then, yeah, that's really when I started thinking about parenting, though. It's true. It's when my kid was born, and I was like, oh, I need to raise this person. Yeah.
yeah. And so, like, having this, background of yours, and I don't know if you're married to a Japanese person. No, right? Because he's learning
No.
Japanese through Duolingo. So I know
Yeah,
that.
no.
So, like, did you even think about how you're going to parent your child in the beginning when you first became a mom, like parenting philosophy or what cultural things you're going to adopt?
Yeah, not really. So my first kid was born in 2020, so during the COVID pandemic. And so mostly I was thinking about how do I give birth safely? We didn't really know that much about, you know, anything going on. I remember being in the hospital room and they weren't allowing that many other people in the room, and the doctors and nurses were all wearing masks, and my husband was wearing a mask. And so really I was mostly thinking about surviving this experience, and birthing is hard and we don't have to talk about it too much, but the birth of my first child was harder than the second child. And, yeah, it was mostly just about that in the beginning. And then she was there and I was like, okay, now what do I do with this child? And I write about this in the book too, but when she was between 0 and 1, most daycare centers were closed because of the pandemic. And we had a nanny who came to our house, for a few hours. And I was working first on parental leave and then working from home. So she was around, and luckily she was a really easy baby. She slept like you just put her down and wrap her up in a swaddle and she'd fall asleep. It's the easiest baby. And so in the beginning, I didn't really think about, how is this child going to be raised or anything like that. But then it came time to put her in daycare. I was, ready to she was ready. You could tell, I'm sure as you're also a parent, but when your kid's kind of ready to be in more social environments. And so she was started daycare when she was 2. And there's a whole chapter in my book that's kind of about the search for the perfect daycare. And I think it was really then when I started touring daycare centers that I was first attracted to this Japanese daycare. Where I live in California, there are so many different, cultures here. And so we toured Spanish immersion daycares, like Tibetan daycares, like, more other East Asian inspired daycares. And so there seemed like there were a lot of options, although many of them fill up very quickly. And, you have to be kind of quick to apply, even when they're too young to go, there's wait lists. And so we did all of that. We went to so many different places. And when we visited the Japanese daycare that she ended up going to, I felt I know, like strangely at home. And that's really when I we started thinking about it.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. You mentioned in your book, and I have seen the Netflix series about the Japanese children old enough, right? That series.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic series. It seems unreal, but it's a real show. This is how Japanese people raise their children. So tell me when you went to Japan and like what stood out to you in terms of parenting. What are the if what would Americans find shocking or other people, we have other listeners from other places, not necessarily US.
Yeah, and that's a really good point because I haven't taken my kids to other countries yet, other than Japan and the US. So I don't, I don't have the lens of being in Europe as a parent, for example, or right. So as a parent, I haven't been to other countries with my kids. But one of the first things I realized when I went to Japan with my kids, and this is not too dissimilar from your story of going to Armenia and your kid climbing a sculpture, but is that the generally the volume is, I mean, this is not just about kids, but the volume, noise volume in Japan is much quieter than in America. So people don't talk as loudly, they don't talk over each other. Like even fire trucks and ambulances the sirens are at a much lower volume, and kids too are quieter. Like they kind of respect that volume level that is the standard. So I think that's one of the first things I always notice when I go back is like, oh, it's just quiet and it's nice, and then so the kids can adapt to that. Probably you've also had this experience where you go to tell your kids like, it's quiet and then they kind of adapt, right? So it's almost like the entire country has a different volume level. That's one of the things I noticed first. Probably a lot of people also notice that. And then um, they also don't generally, again, these are all generalizations. There are always exceptions to the rule, and this is so important to me when you talk about culture, right? Is to not just be like the Japanese people are blank because it's never entirely true. But generally, I think because Japan has a more community first orientation than an individual first orientation
Hmm.
towards life, they are more well behaved when in public and they don't run out, into the street when there's a red light or I mean and or they don't run away from their I mean they do but they don't run away from their parents as much or if you're in a restaurant this is probably maybe one of the most noticeable things like kids are pretty well behaved in restaurants they will sit and sometimes they're looking at a screen or doing a coloring book or something but they keep the volume low. um I don't know why I'm so focused on volume, but it's probably because it's the one thing that will make you like turn away from whatever you're doing, right? When you notice a loud noise or something, you go like, "Oh, what is that? Oh, it's a kid." But you don't necessarily notice if there's a kid sitting next to you because they're pretty quiet. One of the opening stories in my book is about when I'm sitting in a bus and I'm commuting
Hmm.
from my office in Tokyo and I'm sitting in a bus and I'm sitting next to this kid and he's really quiet. He's like reading a book and the bus. And then I look around me and there are multiple kids in this bus, but they're not making any sound. I feel that in America, this is a very rare, maybe I've never had that experience of being surrounded by kids, but not noticing the sound of kids.
No, in America, we're noisy, loud. The kids are crying, screaming, running. We are. I've noticed that too. Heck, I have become like that too. It's like we adapt to the environment for
Yeah,
sure. And
same. Yeah.
what you're describing about the loudness level is like, wow, that's my dream place. It sounds like. What you're describing is that being considerate of other people. And I think that's very common because I come also from a non individualistic, community oriented culture, although Armenians
Hmm.
are pretty loud too, like Italians. However, like considering other people's comforts and choices and being other oriented is huge. And that's
Hmm.
good for the society. But you know what I want to ask you? I was having this conversation with another person, and Yeah, I like that we can be part of the community, consider other people, take care of our environment because it's for everyone's benefit.
Hmm.
But some woman just the other day told me, oh no, that's not good because then you don't have your individuality, then you're
Hmm.
repressing your feelings and you are being raised by shame and a lot of guilt. I want to know more about that
Mm.
repressed feelings. Are the Japanese people repressing their feelings and to please others? Are they more like
Yeah.
shame driven and guilt? Like, is that why? Like, what's happening? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a good question. And maybe, and also you made a good point about being community first doesn't necessarily mean the volume is low. I think that's just true in Japan. You're right. Like and I don't know, I've never been to Armenia, but certainly there are cultures that are very community driven where, loudly interacting
Latin
with one.
cultures, yeah, they're
Yeah,
very
yeah.
noisy and happy and loud,
Yeah,
yes, but
yeah,
they are
but still very
community
community driven.
oriented.
I think it's just
Yeah.
that the rules of like the social rules of Japan are that you respect one another by being kind of quiet and so every culture is different again. But yeah, so to your question about is it repressive to
Yeah.
not express yourself? Probably it is at some level, right? For anybody to not be able to think about who you are as a person, like who am I and what do I, what am I like in the world? How do I exist in the world? What That's very important. And I don't think that Japanese people are necessarily repressing that, but it's not the thing that is taught first in schools. At first, you learn about, this is society and this is how we exist in society, and these are the rules of society. And so it's important to know that too, and it's important to be who you are. Um, I think that we are evolving into a model of raising children that encompasses both. And I think that Japan is starting more from a place of it was always more about society, and now we need to bring in more individual feelings and thought and maybe it's the opposite in other cultures where it was more about the individual, but now we do really also have to think about the community. I didn't go, obviously I am older, so I'm not being raised in Japan now, and I'm not raising my kids in Japan now. So this is all kind of anecdotal, but my understanding is that in the Japanese education system, there is now more emphasis on like what, individualism as well. And we don't want everyone to fit the exact same mold. But I do think that this has been a challenge. Like for my generation, at least, I would say, are we shame driven? Like, I don't know. And probably some people would say yes, but I don't think that it feels that way when you go to Japan and speak to people. Like, people are still very much themselves, when you go out and like talk to people casually. But there's a way that, like, when you're at work or in social, like a kind of more of a group setting, that people might not over index on expressing self, right? They might focus more on just trying to like be fitting in or not um, causing too many waves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. How do they teach, right? Like you went to school there. How is it taught? Like the respect for elderly, being considerate of other people, those kind of things that are kind of hard to teach, right? Like I can
Mm.
understand teaching a little kid to make their own breakfast, to make their bed, or to do household chores and things like that. But how are these values taught, right? They're not like concrete things. I'm curious about your experience having gone to school there. Like, do you read books? What do they preach? Do they lecture? Like, how are these values conveyed to the young kids that they internalize them? It's an important question, you
Mhm.
know?
Well, and maybe it's more useful to talk about like when I brought my kids to Japan in the summers. So, they're still little, but I went, for example, with my older kid to visit my dad's sister who lives, in the countryside of Japan. And when we were there, like I just noticed behaviors that are really emphasizing bringing the kid along in keeping our surroundings respectful and safe. So, for example, we went to an event and somebody like dropped something. I forgot what it was, like Jello or something that's like usually messy. And it was in a public setting. And I don't know, immediately when it dropped, like, three adults came over and helped to clean it up. Like, right. And so, oh, we have to clean up what spilled so that we are keeping our environment clean. Or I remember like we were walking by this little food stand and there were two older ladies who were selling these like little, I don't know, it's like odango, it's like rice cakes, I guess. And they were so friendly to my kid. And, they might have assumed that maybe she doesn't speak Japanese as she looks mixed, but they just still spoke to her very politely, the way that they would maybe speak to each other, right? And they were like, hello, like, oh, I love, would you like to try this food? And so by speaking to her in that way, they are inviting her to speak in the same way to them. And so that, in terms of respect for the elders, I feel like it's really baked in to how people treat one another in the day-to-day level. So when I was growing up in Japan, I think it was the same thing. And I didn't go to a Japanese public school.
Oh,
So
mhm.
I don't know if they teach that in school, but my sense is that you just kind of get it through osmosis as well, because everybody is so respectful to one another. That if you didn't do it, like you would just be a little bit of an outlier. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Through modeling, I guess that's what I'm hearing. By demonstrating by living the values, by modeling, that's how it's passed on. That's how they teach.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
if,
like when you walk
yeah,
into a store here, I think when you walk in with a kid to a store, that either people look a little worried that the kid's going to cause trouble, or they talk to the kid like they're a kid, like, oh, you're so cute, here's some candy or whatever, you know. But in Japan, like most of the time, we walk into a store, they will treat the kid like any other customer in the
human,
store.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I am
And so
so
then it,
Japanese. This is totally me. I love this. I was sitting on a bench in the park the other day with my daughter. It was a nice day. And there was this woman with her grandchild. Grandchild was like 13 months old, right? Little boy who is walking,
oh,
wobbling. And he
yeah.
comes to me, and I have this iced coffee in my hand. He's looking at my coffee, and I'm engaging with him because I love little toddlers. And I'm like, hi, how are you? This is my coffee and it's cold. And he's looking, I'm like, this is not for children. So I'm talking to him and I'm like, this is cold. Do you want to touch it? And I'm engaging and talking for like 30 minutes. I was like engaging with this kid, and my daughter is giving me like, Mom, like enough. It's embarrassing. But then the grandmother came to me and she said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're so different. I said, what do you
Mm.
mean? She said, he's very friendly. He goes to a lot of people, but most people don't engage with him. They just like give him a look or shut him down or like, what is this annoying little thing? I'm like,
Oh.
oh, this is like, you know, again, like that's a cultural thing. Probably I grew up, right? In my
Mm.
culture, I think it expresses still, you know?
Mm. In
Yeah.
Armenian culture,
It
do
is.
people? Yeah,
It
it's
is
like that.
similar, right? It's community
Yeah.
oriented, but like again, they are not quiet, right? They
Mm-hmm.
are
Mm.
noisy, jovial, and
Mm.
if you are a kid in a neighborhood and you're doing something quote unquote bad, a neighborhood woman or a grandma or another person's mom will scold you and say, "Hey, go to your whatever. I'm going to tell your mom," or something like that. It's understood that people can, I don't want to say parent other children, but they can interfere, they can intervene. Try to do that in America. Police will be called on you. If you say something to another kid, another parent's kid,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to be careful even to engage in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was in the park with that little boy, I'm like, I am who I am, but I think, and the woman was French. So that worked out. She wasn't American. I don't know how
Hmm.
Americans might have felt. They might pick up their child and say, "Sorry, he's bothering you," and they may excuse themselves and go. But
Hmm.
that's not a bother for me. I enjoy interacting with this
Mm.
little toddler. It gave me so much joy for the day. But there are differences like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find this so fascinating endlessly how different cultures parent their children and how we do it here in America. You know,
Hmm.
Europe is different too. Their children are well behaved too. So, what can you say about like rewards and punishments? You know, Japanese children are well behaved. What if they don't behave very well? What happens? Are they rewarded for good behavior? I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, again, and to your point about culture, there's general, like the country's culture, the ethnic cultures, there's family cultures, right? There's so many different ways that you can group it. So I want to be careful, but I think generally, yes, Japanese praise good behavior. I think that is probably the number one way that you motivate more good behavior. When I was a kid in Japanese class, we would always like if we did something well on a exercise, like a written exercise or something, you would always get this like it's called a hanamaru. It's like a circle, but with a heart, flowers around it, and it's always like a really good token of great work. And if you buy little workbooks and stuff in Japan, they always come with Hanamara stickers. So, my kids are very happy when they get that on their worksheets of their Japanese after school program, or they get sticker as they recognize it as it's like getting a star, I guess, in an American, like a star sticker or any kind of sticker, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah.
Stickers are great. Yeah, they work. But also I think when I write about this in my book as well, but I observe some, parents of toddlers in public and how do they keep their toddler from straying from them. So I remember at a shopping mall in the middle of the day. It's again very quiet. But then if you look around, there's moms with strollers and their kids are maybe between 2 and 4 years old. And they're walking, they're not in stroller, they're walking. They're walking just right next to their mom or right behind their mom and following along. And they're looking around and getting distracted by store windows and stuff, but they don't stop. They don't go like, Mom, I want to do this. They just keep walking next to their mom. And so when you get closer, you realize that the mom is actually gently talking to them the whole time. Like, hey, okay, like now we're gonna go this way. We're
Ah,
gonna, we're going to the bathroom now. So you're gonna have to follow me and you're doing a good job. And so it's like this constant positive reinforcement.
guiding
Um,
also, like through
yeah,
their
guiding,
voice.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very gentle voice, there's no charge to it. I feel like when I witnessed this and I witnessed it over and over, I'm like, this is good, right? So I do it with my kids too. Even when we're in the house, if they're getting unruly, I'll be like, okay, now it's time to do this, and we're gonna all walk over together to the other side of the house, and we're gonna get the bath ready, and it kind of works because it kind of puts them in this trance of like, all right, we're gonna do what mom's doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a kid who is, I don't know, you can try that with the kid here, but they may say, No, you're not the boss of me. You're not going to tell me what to do. Or on purpose, they may just go and do the thing, some kids can, but
Oh, for sure.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. It's the subtle things, right? It's the tone of voice, it's the guiding voice, not telling what to do, like more authoritarian. It's not the yelling
Hmm.
voice. It's not the, reactive, exacerbated, mom is tired. Come on, you got to get into your stroller or we're not coming ever again type of behavior. Or
Yeah. Which
that's what I'm
also
hearing.
happens.
It happened. I
Yeah,
was
I
going to
mean,
ask you that. In
yeah,
my notes, I
no,
just
for
wrote
sure.
temper tantrum and parents, temper tantrums from kids and moms or, dads. It's primarily moms, right? They raise their kids. That's what I remember hearing. So tell
Yeah.
me how they lose their
It's
temper. Because if you're that kind and patient all the time, you gotta lose it sometimes.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think those are all the best in class examples, right? When you're your best self as a mom or parent, like you are guiding and being patient, and with your kids being their best self, they're following and they're enjoying the process of learning through following, and that's great. Like, but obviously it's not all the time. Definitely, I've seen kids losing it in Japan in public. And that's totally normal, right? We know that it's part of the development of the brain and the
Mm-hmm.
body and all that stuff. But I would say I've seen a few different scenarios. And again, every parent is different and like nobody's perfect. But like the last time I was in Tokyo, there was a kid walking down the stairs with his dad, and more, I think you're seeing dads in charge as well. So that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Even in Japan, which, is a largely historically patriarchal society. But yeah, dad was walking down the stairs, kid was following, some reason stopped following and started losing it, right? And was crying. And so the dad, and they were walking towards a public area. What I noticed the dad do was he picked up the kid and quickly, swiftly went back up the stairs to a more private area. And then I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm sure he just tried to calm him down, but he didn't do it in the public
Oh,
area.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. Oh, interesting. And remember that also like respects other people's space and the noise level and everything. And they want to keep it
Yeah.
private. I think,
Yeah. It's like less
yeah.
embarrassing for them too,
Less
right? Whatever.
embarrassing for them and for the child too. Like you don't want to
Mhm.
be publicly disciplined or whatever that is your parent is gonna do, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that makes sense.
I used that tactic a lot when I was in Tokyo with my kids, and they were, whenever they started getting too loud in a restaurant, and we started getting these, side glances from our neighbors in the restaurant, I would just like either I or my partner would be like, okay, take her out. We would just take them out of the restaurant. At least
Yeah.
you've removed the problem from the situation, and then you deal with that in a
Yeah.
more private setting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you also write about like this. I want to focus a little bit on this like guiding thing as opposed to questions, right? Like American,
Yeah.
like we give a lot of choices and like, do you want to put your shoes on, sweetie? We try to be like nice and polite, but it's like a 3-year-old just say, come on, put your shoes on. It gotta be an instruction. Otherwise, like that's not gonna go very well. So
Yeah.
tell me what you noticed about that.
Yeah, the choices, I think, is a very maybe Western concept of giving people a lot of choices. And it's true with kids too. So, and I noticed that I myself give more choices when I'm speaking English to my kids than when I'm speaking Japanese to my kids, which is so weird because I'm the same person, but somehow,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. That is
And
interesting. I would like to
yeah.
read a book about that, like your inner
Yeah, what's going
monologue
on
in both
inside?
languages.
Yeah.
Oh,
What's going on inside?
wow.
But yeah, because in English, yeah, like you said, right? Do you want to take a bath now?
Yeah. Instead
Or
of saying bath
yeah,
time, come on, the water is running,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Like who
why
is in
not
charge
say that?
here, you know?
Yeah, yeah, the water's running. Like let's go, right?
And it's not
But
coercive, I think because
no,
previous generations have been so authoritarian and control
mm,
and fear based,
yes,
people have moved on to the other extreme and we
mm,
stripped the complete leadership and authority
yeah,
is not a bad word from the parent
mm,
and we're like, do you want to take a bath, do you want to brush your teeth? No, it's okay, sweetie, don't brush your teeth or whatever. Like it's like,
yeah,
no, this is not good, somebody has to be in charge
yeah.
here, and that's
I
not a
think
bad
so.
thing.
Yeah,
Like guiding your
yeah,
child through the routine, through the process, through the hygiene. It's a lot of work for the parent. Either way it's a lot of work, whether you do it this way or the other way. But I
yeah.
think if you do it the Japanese way, let's call it the Japanese way, right? More
Mm.
authoritative, it's you get less of the misbehaviors, I guess,
Yeah, I think
from the
maybe.
kids
Yeah.
because they internalize what's expected and there is no pushing the boundaries or not too much perhaps, but if you're giving too many choices then kids learn
Yeah.
that like I can take a mile, an inch was given to me, let me push a little more, a little more, a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the Japanese way is to kind of set a standard in the beginning so they know what
Mm.
is
Mm-hmm.
how things are kind of typically supposed to be. And then later, like now I think with my older kid, for example, I know that she knows what the right thing to do is. For example, like if the bath water, to take the bath an idea further, if the bath water is full, then she knows that it's probably time to take a bath, if not right this second,
Mm.
sometime soon before it
Mm-hmm.
gets cold,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then she knows. And then it's up to me, the parent, how much I want to, how I want to get her, encourage her to do it, right? I could
Yeah.
be like, get in the bath now.
Mm-hmm.
I could start counting 1, 2, 3. Or I could be like, well, I don't know. It's all an experiment. But more recently, I've been like, you can do what you want, but you know that the bath water is in there. You know it's going to get cold. And you know that at 7:30, it's going to be time to go get ready for bed. So it's up to you. You can get in the bath now and then you'll have more time to play afterwards, or you can wait and the water will be cold and then you won't have time to play later. And it is a choice. I
That,
recognize
that's
because
the,
I
I was
am,
gonna say that that sounds a very American parenting to
it
me.
is, it's true. Maybe it is very American. Yeah. But so
But
that's
you're
what I've been
softening a
doing.
little bit. You're softening a little bit. I guess you're bringing a
Yeah.
little bit of Japanese flair to it.
I'm not
I can feel.
sure. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. But
But
yeah, I think in the book I write about like in a Japanese mom might be like, okay, it's time to take a bath. And then the kid would go to the bath. Whereas like, yeah, an American parent would do what I just did.
yeah,
So
and the
yeah.
kids will run around and it will be like 2 hours they're struggling to get a bath and a bedtime routine going, you know.
Mhm.
I think, yeah. And I like the fact that Japanese children, first of all, eat like adults. There's no children's foods, right? And
Mm.
also what I like about them that they're helpful. You write in the, I think it was the penultimate chapter where you have a little Dyson hand vacuum and you're giving it to your child to vacuum and like kind of hesitating. And then she's bored. Like, tell me about this. How come they are doing it? And like, we can't instill this in our children in America.
Like having fun with a Dyson vacuum.
No, not
I
having fun,
probably,
but like doing chores, little things around the
oh.
house, you know?
Yeah, well, we probably could. I mean, it's hard. Most of the time, I'm cleaning up after them. But yeah, there was a time when she was really into pretend cleaning. And so,
I like
yeah, somebody had given them a toy that's like a toy broom. And I was like, why do we need a toy broom? They should just use real cleaning supplies and actually clean. And so the Dyson hand vacuum, which is such a godsend when you like have little kids, you need a hand vacuum.
mm-hmm.
Um, that's whatever country you're in.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, I try to make it fun, I'm like let's see how many crumbs you can get off the floor with this hand vacuum.
But that's not how they do it in
Yeah.
Japan, right? They don't make it fun or child friendly. It's sort
Oh
of
no, that's
no.
true. Yeah, it's more like you just have to do it, I guess. I mean, in school, like people have
Yeah.
different jobs. But I did notice that, in American schools too, they are starting to give kids jobs. I don't think they clean up as thoroughly because they know that there's going to be like a cleaning crew who comes in later.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think in Japan they give you specific tasks. Like
Yeah.
you might be in charge of cleaning the chalkboard or the whiteboard or
Yeah.
whatever people use now, or you might be in charge of sweeping the floors. They are very good at like organizing things. So I think because the classroom that my kids grew up in is very organized, like the shoes are always put in little cubby holes and they're facing a specific way, or the books are organized by color, and so then they do that too. And so again, it's modeling, right?
And
And
the
then
environment. I think setting up the
yeah.
environment so that you respect the environment
Mm-hmm.
instead of, yeah, I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
and it feels
that
nice
comes
to
from
be in
the
a
parent or the caregiver, right? You set the environment in a way that encourages a certain type of behavior. And then,
yeah.
then you don't have to work so hard in instilling something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's like at home and in school and in society, if all three of those spaces are
Mm-hmm.
encouraging a similar kind of standard, then it
Mm-hmm.
just becomes your normal, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like in other, like America is such a beautifully diverse country. And so you have, but then what you're doing at home, like, you as an Armenian mother, right? Me as a Japanese mother, like we might be doing different things at home. And then they go to school where like
Mm-hmm.
everybody is coming from a family with completely different standards and norms and cultures and then they go out into the world and again it's like so different depending on where you live. Like probably New Jersey and Northern California have different, everything's like so up for grabs. So you don't actually standardize anything. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's actually beautiful and it's important and it's kind of part of why we live in America is because I think it's important to see all the different ways that people live and there's no right or wrong. But for
Mm-hmm.
better or worse in Japan, like there is right or wrong. It's a little bit more clear cut. And so, there's a certain way that home life is expected to be. And all
Yeah.
you can assume pretty safely that like many of your friends at school probably had a similar routine at home or that when you
Yeah.
leave, yeah. So I think
That's
it's a
I get like
difference.
that's very
Yeah.
common to homogeneous countries, right? Like the
Hmm.
way I grew up in Armenia or many European countries. It's like I was talking to my friend who lives now in France, and she was saying the same thing that like it's almost people have the same rules in different families. So it's a lot easier to manage your own kid or the expectations and the behaviors are expected that become certain things become easier, right? In America we have so many colors and diversity that would be impossible to put like a standard on things like that. And I
Hmm.
think that works in homogeneous countries because I've noticed that I kind of miss that sometimes. I'm
Hmm.
not gonna lie.
Yeah. It does make it easier, right?
It's
It's not
smooth and
everything.
easy. And how is it like screen time? Do Japanese children have like phones? How is the technology used? And do parents battle over screens? I'm so curious about, have you witnessed anything? I know you're not there now, but
Yeah, I mean, my kids are still small, and
yeah,
the book is really centered around that age group.
yeah.
But I do have some relatives, kids who are
Mm-hmm.
a little bit older, and also like if you go on the trains, like and stuff, you do see a lot of the kids are on
Mm,
screens. I think in some schools are screen free. I mean, that's here too as well. Like there are
mm-hmm.
some schools that are, they don't allow people to bring in their phones and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that helps people be more present.
Mm,
But yeah, I can't really speak specifically to,
mm-hmm.
I think screen time is a problem everywhere though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I hear
Yeah.
you. I liked the last chapter of your book, like 30 ways to bring Japanese way of
Mm,
parenting. One of them is, believe that everything has a spirit.
mm.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So animism, right? Everything has a spirit. In America, sometimes people name their cars or in Japan, I think we do believe that everything has a spirit. I mean, not in like a weird way, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't, like, I don't know, like a book, you would always put it down
Mm-hmm.
neatly. You wouldn't leave it splayed open.
Mm-hmm.
For example, that is a belief that everything has a spirit, right? If a book,
Mm-hmm.
like not literally, but like you want to respect your things as much as because that's a part of your surroundings.
Mm.
And if you believe in animals, I think we talk about one of the tips about like how you address
Yes.
animals when you're a little kid. You
Yeah.
always put song after like the animals. So it's like Mr. Elephant. It's kind of like saying Mr. Elephant or
Oh.
Mr. Giraffe, and it's showing a little bit of respect.
Oh, see
Uh,
how it's taught? That's how it's taught, like through small
yeah,
little subtle
that's
nuances
right. Yeah.
throughout. It's weaved in through everything.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, or even like pushing your chair in after you get up from your desk, or how you put your water bottle on the table. I
Yeah,
noticed that like public schools, the kids just throw their water bottle
yeah.
into the basket or whatever, but like Japanese kids wouldn't throw things. They would be taught to put it down gently, right? And you would even hear people say, like, yeah, you have to, wouldn't you feel sorry for the thing if you throw it that way? Like,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Or like
Wow.
Marie Kondo, if you ever watch her
Yes,
videos,
I did. Yeah.
she's really kind of like, your clothes want to be folded this way, right? That's kind of her idea. they want to be, and you have to say goodbye to the things that you threw away. Like if you're no longer, it's no longer serving you, you thank it for its service, even if it's a sock with a hole in it, right?
Yeah, no, I love this.
Yeah.
It makes you pause and bring that kindness and caring towards things and towards your surroundings. I love that a lot. You say, one of the tips is encourage I can do it myself mindset, which I
Hmm.
really like too. Also, the difference between indoor shoes and outdoor shoes. See, in Armenia we have that too. Yeah, there is a difference. Yeah. But
Yeah.
here in America, people just walk all over. You have to tell them when they come to your home, please take your shoes off. Or people ask, like, do you keep your shoes on and off? I'm like, that's not even a question. It should be off. Like
Yeah.
that's dirty. Like we walk barefoot here, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The shoe thing is a big, yeah, it's a big difference for sure.
Like, what do you
Um,
practice from all those things in your family now? You say, do
yeah.
daily exercises together, don't interrupt other people, try to keep meltdowns at home. Oh my gosh, that's what I was going to talk to you about. Like, how do you do that,
Yeah, it's really hard, but I think that, my earlier example of the dad who like took his
Yeah, keep it
kid and
private. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't at home, but yeah, keeping it private or, I think it's also just teaching kids like, wait, there's a way to be when you're outside the house and there's a way to be when you're inside the house. I don't know. I mean, some people might not like that though, right? Like that you should
Mm-hmm.
be able to be who you are wherever you are. And I get that too. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, it's easier or it's easier. I don't know. I guess when you're parenting toddlers, you are kind of looking for also what makes your life a little easier. It is easier for me if I can depend on them to be a little bit more well behaved when they're around other people, right? It's harder with like this really small kids because they really don't know the difference between like they don't care where they are. They're having a hard time, they're having a hard time. But I think by the time they are like, you know, 5, 4, 5, 6, like you can start to tell them, we're in public, so let's be cool. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, do other moms support each other? Let's say if you're having a hard time with your child or something, can another Japanese mom offer you some kind of support or speak to you or no?
No, I think it's like no, the opposite. Like
Mm,
everybody really minds their own business. I mean,
mm-hmm,
if someone's in trouble, everybody will help, but as
mm-hmm,
long as they deem that it's not a safety risk, I think people
mm.
really mind their own business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. You have other tips. Let kids play by themselves. Be
Oh,
really on time, early or on time. I love that. This is my pet peeve. People are not on time. Um,
yeah. That's a tricky one too. I mean, okay, so let kids play by themselves. One thing I did notice in Japan is that parents don't climb onto like the playground equipment with the kids. They kind of stand in a corner and they just let the kid play. Um,
yeah,
yeah, here, like there are people of all sizes on
yeah.
playground equipment, but yeah, I don't even know if that's safe. Anyway, but yeah, I think that is like parents kind of see playground time as time where they can like sit in the corner and chat. Or I talked right about a birthday party I went to in Tokyo where like the parents had hired one babysitter to watch all the kids, and then they sat downstairs and drank champagne and like ate really yummy food and just chatted. And
Smart.
it's
Hey, that's smart.
yeah,
I love
it,
that. Yeah.
it is. Yeah,
Because they're so involved and it's so exhausting during, parenting times. They get
yeah,
their yeah, I like that. It should be a little separation.
yeah. I think so.
And do you
Oh, and
practice
then
that here or no? Or you're
letting
like an
them play by
American?
themselves. I
Yeah.
do, yeah, at
Yeah.
home too. I let what I've been doing recently is before they come home from school, like I mean, I always try to keep the house clean, but then I put one activity on the table. So when they come home, they eat dinner, they do whatever, right? Go through their bath routine. They know that there's that one activity waiting for them, and then they can kind of I try to make it something they can engage with by themselves with. So like Play-Doh is like a good one, right? You could put a Play-Doh kit, but you don't need to play with them or a coloring book or whatever it could be, like a train set, whatever they're
Mm-hmm.
into. But yeah, if you leave them with an activity that they can do by themselves and then you let them play them by themselves, it works for a while. At some point they might start, I have two kids, they start fighting or one of them needs attention, then I'll go. But for the most part, playtime where it's not playing with me.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
we can play together, sometimes we don't have to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There are so many wonderful, I love discovering the different ways. There are 30 ways. But what I want to conclude our conversation with is, if you were to like describe in your own words with adjectives the American way of parenting and the Japanese way of parenting, like juxtaposing, what kind of adjectives would you use?
Oh, wow.
I mean, you can use expressions, not necessarily adjectives. Yeah, that's more limiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more limiting. But if you can use, if you were to give like a short description, this is how we do it here, and this is how they do it here. What's valued or what's essential?
I say a Japanese parenting is community first, is guiding and leading. Yeah, and it's really hard to say American parenting is blank because I think America is
Yeah.
there's so many different
Yeah,
components to
yeah.
America.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
with that caveat, obviously. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is what generalizing. But I think the
Yeah.
listener understands what we mean.
Yeah. And
And
I think
and
mhm.
yeah, and we have so many listeners in around the world. Like I don't
Mm.
want to focus, but we focus on America because this is where I live. This is what we talk
Mhm.
about. That's why.
Yeah. I think in America, it's more, childhood is more about individuals, the kid, maybe it's more kid individual first. And
Child-centered.
then,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right?
And yeah, which is also great. And then maybe maybe like more motivating than guiding, you know,
Mm.
and trying to find what would drive their individual self to want to do something versus being like, this is the right thing to do. And so you'll
I
do it.
see.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. That's an interesting observation. Yeah.
It's like the kid has to want to do it. So, right? That's a
But
very,
if, and it's also the downside to that. If you let the kid, you know, one day to decide to do it, they will never do it. If it was up to the kids, they would love to eat junk food, stay up late night and be on screens. I think,
yeah.
I think the role of the parent, what I love about your book, I think, is you're not saying that the Japanese way is the best way, obviously. I think it's the mix. What can we learn from their parenting and mix it with ours? I think that's the best balance. I like that balanced approach.
Yeah. I would say so. A lot of times I do have to, my kid is, very American in many ways, and I often have to convince her that she should want to do something. And so then you asked me a little bit earlier about like what's the internal debate happening in my
Yes,
head, like
yes.
the Japanese me and then like the American me. And I think a lot of times when she's like, why do I have to do that? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I'd be like, why do I have to convince her to want to do this thing?
Yeah,
Like, you should do it because it's what you have to do to get to the next step, right? Like,
yeah,
you have to turn off the light so you can get some rest and be ready to go tomorrow morning. And so that's, I think, I don't know if it's common sense or whatever, but I'm like, that's what I want to just be able to tell you that, and you would just be understand. But then she'll be like, but I don't want to. I want to do this. I want to do this. So I don't know if that's a Japanese versus American thing, but it is a thing where,
I think it is. I think it
yeah,
is. I noticed that not only that's an American thing, again, generalizing, because I had like neighbors from Denmark. I observed their parenting. I lived in 4 countries. My friend now lives in France. Like we talk about this stuff. And I noticed like those kinds of questions are not asked by other kids. They just simply do it for their sake and for the sake of other people's well-being or the public.
yeah,
It's not questioned. Why do I have to do it? It's like maybe they're questioning in their mind, but they are doing it. But here,
yeah,
our kids here have a little more choice, and it's like it's
yeah,
so hard to say you gotta go to school because you have to do this because this is part of life because this is, and it's hard to be in that kind of battle all the time as a parent.
yeah. A
It's
lot of
exhausting.
whys. Like,
Yeah.
why, why?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I do think that's true.
that
Yeah.
ease of cooperation from other children that I notice from other cultures is always desirable for us. Yes, as
Hmm.
Americans, we give choices, autonomy, independent thinking. You can be what you want. You can do what you want. You can, break the glass ceiling and blah, blah, blah. But then with that, it's just, there's a lot of difficulty
For the parent, right?
for the
Yeah, it's like,
parent.
yeah. It's so I'm like, I want her to be inquisitive and to
Yeah.
challenge norms in her life, but like with me at 8:30
But
p.m., I just want you to do what I say.
I agree. But in order for them to challenge it outside, they have to practice it here. Like
Yes,
if you
this is
want
the
to,
conundrum.
this is the conundrum we find ourselves in. Like if you want your
Yes.
child to say no when they are
Yeah.
older and set boundaries and be okay
Yeah.
with that, you have to take that no now. Like we have to
Exactly.
welcome that. But it's
Yes.
hard. Sometimes you just want ease and cooperation and just because I said so, like
Yeah.
you
But
know.
yeah. And this is why I think it's so wonderful that there's so many different ways to parent, and we live in a place and world and time where we get to choose bits and pieces of different things, right?
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like the Japanese way is the only way, certainly not. But there are some pieces of it that are useful. Like,
Yeah, yeah, for
yeah.
sure. I mean, do their kids not achieve? They're not motivated? Like, are they not creating things? Are they not expressing through art? Like, they are, like, they're inventing things.
Hmm.
Japan is like highly, innovative, right? In the forefront of technology and
Hmm.
everything. It's not like you're gonna just create followers and they're never gonna be thinking for themselves individually. That's like that's not true.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not entirely true, but it is true that it's harder. It's a bigger, steeper climb up, I think, for, like a Japanese raised kid to really, you know, become like the next big inventor. I just think that maybe that's like they have to break a few more.
Oh, I see. I see. I understand what you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Whereas here, it's like, I can just, I can be a 13-year-old kid and start a business and it can just take off. And there are barriers, but not like, yeah, like
Yeah,
that.
some American kids have that privilege, and some
Yes.
don't, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think culturally, Japanese kids might feel like they have to break a few more rules to get,
Yeah.
yeah, to do that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. This is so fascinating, Lisa. I appreciate your time here. I
thank
enjoyed
you.
reading your book. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks for all the thoughtful questions and for taking the time to chat.
Yes, I'm interested in this. That concludes today's conversation, my dear listener, and I hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. Be sure to hit that follow button so you don't miss future episodes, and take a moment to leave a rating and review. It really helps others find the show. I would love to hear your thoughts and takeaways. Join the conversation in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group or visit the contact page at authenticparenting.com/contact to get in touch. Authentic Parenting is an ad-free show, and your donations is what makes this podcast possible. Support the show by visiting authenticparenting.com/support or becoming a patron at patreon.com. Your contributions make it possible for me to continue bringing you weekly episodes. And as always, connect to the present moment, to yourself and your children. Until next week, I am Anna Seewald. Thank you so much for listening. This episode was edited and produced by Aminur. If you need expert support to bring your dream podcast to life, from editing to full production, Aminur can help make it happen. You'll find his link in the show notes.